So let me tell you about a guy named Francis Crowley. Back in the 1930s, Crowley was one of the most dangerous criminals in New York. The newspapers called him Two Gun Crowley, and he earned that name. He killed a cop, a police officer who just walked up to his car and asked to see his license. That's it. That's all the guy did. Crowley pulled out his gun and shot him. Then he grabbed the officer's gun and shot him again, just to make sure. Cold-blooded, right? No conscience. A killer. Now, why am I telling you about a cop killer on a sales podcast? Because what happened next shows you something about people that will change how you sell forever. Stick with me here. When the police finally tracked Crowley down, they cornered him in his girlfriend's apartment. 150 cops outside, bullets flying everywhere. This goes on for hours. And while all this is happening, while Crowley is bleeding, while he's shooting back, he's writing a letter. You know what it said? Under my coat is a weary heart, but a kind one. One that would do nobody any harm. A kind heart that would do nobody any harm. This guy just killed a cop. And in his own head, he's the good guy. He's the one being picked on. When they put him in the electric chair, his last words weren't sorry. They weren't, I made a mistake. He said, this is what I get for defending myself. Here's the point. Nobody blames themselves. Ever. Not Crowley, not guys on death row, not crooked politicians, not CEOs who run companies into the ground, not the spouse who cheated. Nobody. There was a guy named Lewis Laws who ran a prison for years. He talked to hundreds of men who were about to be executed. And he said something I've never forgotten. He said almost none of them thought they were bad people. They all had reasons. They all had stories. They could all explain exactly why they had to do what they did. They talked themselves into it, even believed it themselves. So here's my question. If killers can't admit they did something wrong, what makes you think your prospect is going to be any different? When you point out what's wrong with their situation, when you tell them their thinking is off, when you show them their past choices weren't working, you think they're going to say, you know what? You're right. I've been doing this all wrong. They won't. They can't, because criticism does one thing, just one thing. It makes people defend themselves. And once someone is defending themselves, they're not hearing you anymore. They're not open. They're putting up walls. You know that feeling, right? Someone criticizes you, even nicely, even trying to help, and you feel that heat in your chest, that tightness in your jaw, that need to push back, to explain yourself. That's what you're setting off in your prospect every time you say, well, actually. Every time you hint they made a bad call. Every time you suggest what they're doing isn't working. You might be totally right. You might be totally correct. That doesn't matter, because being right and being effective, not the same thing. Carnegie tells this great story about Lincoln. We think of Lincoln as this wise, patient guy, but he wasn't always like that. When he was young, Lincoln loved writing nasty letters. He'd tear apart his political opponents in his newspapers. Really mean stuff. And one day, he went too far. He wrote this anonymous letter ripping into a politician named James Shield. It was brutal. Made the good guy look like a fool. And when Shields found out Lincoln wrote it, he challenged him to a duel with swords. Think about this. Abraham Lincoln, tall, skinny, awkward Lincoln, standing on a sandbar by the Mississippi River, holding a sword, about to fight for his life, all because he couldn't stop himself from criticizing someone. They called off the duel at the last second, but Lincoln never forgot it. From that day on, he made a rule. No more nasty letters. No more making fun of people in public. And after that, he almost never criticized anyone for anything. Even during the Civil War, his generals kept messing up. One guy wouldn't move his troops. Another one let the whole enemy army get away after a major battle. Everyone wanted these generals gone. Lincoln's own team was screaming for it, but Lincoln held back because he got something most people never figure out. Criticism doesn't change people. It just makes them dig in. And that resistance, that's the enemy of everything you're trying to do in sales. So what do you do instead? If you can't point out the problems, if you can't show people where they're going wrong, how do you actually help them move forward? That's where Carnegie's second big idea comes in. He calls it the big secret of dealing with people. And it comes down to one thing: the deepest need in human nature. Not food, not safety, not even love. The need to feel important. A psychologist named William James put it like this: the deepest thing in human nature is the need to be appreciated. Not the want, not the preference, the need. And when you learn to meet that need, really, honestly, consistently, everything changes. You're not tricking people. You're not running some move on them. You're giving them something they've been hungry for their whole lives. The feeling of being seen, of being valued, of mattering to someone. In a world where everyone is busy, everyone is distracted, everyone is looking at their phone instead of the person in front of them, that becomes the most valuable thing you can give. This is what finally clicked for me at Movati. I wasn't losing sales because my pitch was bad. I was losing them because I was so focused on what I wanted, the close, the commission, the number, that I forgot to make the person in front of me feel like they mattered. And I was being critical without even knowing it. I'd tell them their workout routine wasn't working. I'd point out they weren't getting results on their own. I'd hint that they didn't really know what they were doing. All true, all correct, all working against me. Because every little criticism, even the small ones, was taking something out of the relationship. And by the time I got to the close, there was nothing left. They didn't trust me. They didn't feel safe. They didn't think I actually cared about them. So they said, I need to think about it. And they left. Things changed when I stopped trying to be right. I started trying to make them feel heard. When I asked questions because I really wanted to understand, not because I was steering them somewhere. When I started noticing the effort they put in, the guts it took to walk through those doors, how hard it is to admit you want something to change, that's when it turned around. And that's what we're going to dig into for the rest of this episode. Real, practical stuff that will change how you connect with people. So let's get into it. Because knowing you shouldn't criticize is one thing. Learning how to actually make people feel valued, that's where it gets real. Hey, thanks for checking out this clip from the Sales Evolution Lab podcast. If you found value in this lesson, be sure to hit subscribe to evolve for the future of selling. And if you want the full breakdown, the deeper stories, the practical toolkit, check out the full episode. Just click the video on the screen, and I'll see you there.